Thanks, Lascan. How long have I left, Lascan?
12 minutes. So you will be moving the adjournment.
And thanks for the opportunity to speak on this very important bill. Mr Paddy Connolly, the Chief Executive of Inclusion Ireland, wrote a very moving and impassioned piece in the Irish Examiner today entitled, and I quote, "People with disabilities are not a diagnosis, they are human," end quote. And if you haven't already read it, Minister, I presume you have, I urge you to do so. I mean, some of the words really struck a chord with me, including, and I quote, "The greatest threat to the well-being of people who have disabilities is their invisibility," end quote. It, again, quote, "renders them non-agents of their own fate, passive recipients of care rather than rights holders," end quote. He also calls out your statement, Minister, that, and I quote, "Ireland, you've said, is in advance of other EU states when it comes to persons with disability." In actual fact, aren't we the only EU state that hasn't signed or that hasn't implemented the Convention? And a study by the European Institute for Gender Equality showed clearly that your statement is simply not true. Paddy also says that he recently resigned from the National Disability Strategy Implementation Group, calling it, and I quote, "a bureaucratic echo chamber." Now, we as legislators, Minister, have to ensure, obviously, that people with disabilities don't feel invisible, and we have to enhance and protect their rights to live full and equal lives. So while I will be supporting the bill, and I welcome that it's finally, at long last, before us today, it is time for the government to step out of the echo chamber and put words and promises into action. And as you know, I recently questioned you on the actual amount of funding that you had secured for disability in Budget 2017. And as my colleague, I think, has said, the implementation of the Convention, of course, it does revolve completely around cost and around the fact that the Fine Gael party that you are now allied with, and indeed Fianna Fáil in the past, Lascan, were not prepared to spend the funding that was necessary to fulfil assessments for citizens with disability. I'd like to ask you just a few questions, Minister, in relation to the legislation as it is. Can you outline what legislative provisions will now be made to ensure that people with disabilities have equal and effective legal protection against discrimination on all grounds? Article 5 of the Convention. The Civil Legal Aid Scheme doesn't extend to people with disabilities wishing to make complaints to the Workplace Relations Commission and thereby enforce their protection against discrimination. The lack of legal aid renders the protection ineffective for many. So given the limitations of the legal aid scheme, people with disabilities don't have access to legal advice and representation before other tribunals, such as the Social Welfare Appeals Office. And how will you address that? Are you going to address it in one of the heads that you're... I mean, it's the most extraordinary piece. This is my final point, Lascan, before I know you have to adjourn. The most extraordinary piece of legislation. I never remember a piece of legislation in this House, somebody coming in with a bill and saying this is a historic day, and then saying you're going to bring in all these raft of amendments at a later stage that, as Deputy Barry said earlier, we all of us won't get the chance to invigilate. So, from that point of view, Minister, I hope you're serious about this legislation and that it will mark a watershed of huge improvement for our 600,000 citizens with disability.
I call on Deputy Broughan to move the adjournment.
I so move.